And I want to take us on a journey into the future. Many of you will see your logos up here as we go through that journey into the future of almost everything, which is impossible to do in 45 minutes, but I'm going to try. It's the smallest things in the world sometimes that create the greatest business magic. I'm going to divide the future into 6 pieces. They spell the word future. They are a cube. And there's an energy which drives the spinning of that cube. There is one word which will drive the future more than any other. And whatever you are, whether you're in telco or healthcare, whether you're in energy or infrastructure, this single word has driven the last 300 years of human history and will drive the next 300. I'm not talking about innovation. I'm not even talking about disruptive technology. I'm not talking about healthcare or politics or economics. This single word, what is this word? I'll come back to it in a moment. The first phase of the future, I want to spend the most time on out of the 6 because it is so fundamental right here in Madison, in Wisconsin, in this amazingly beautiful city in front of all of our technology companies and other things here today. It's the speed of change. And the fact is that complexity is creating extraordinary risks. And it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're an airline, whether you're a shipping company, whether you are someone exporting to Russia who's not sideways by what suddenly happened between Russia and Ukraine, whether it's the refugee crisis in Europe. You know, benchmarking is toxic to risk management. Can I say that again? One of the fastest ways to destroy your company is to benchmark yourselves against the competitors. I'll give you one example, which is banking, subprime banking. Every bank benchmarked themselves against the industry average, and they all went over the same cliff at the same time. We saw the same thing happen recently when 70% of all the chip manufacturers in the world decided to put 70% of their chip manufacturing in the same floodplain of the same country called Thailand, where they were hit by the same global event. Actually, it was a very local event, a big storm, which put out all of their production. How crazy is that? And they said, well, we benchmarked our risks against the industry average. Everyone else is there, so it must be okay. So what we're learning is this, that if we want to minimize risk, if we want to maximize opportunity, we have to do it different. And you know, the same thing applies to convergence. Every single product starts to look the same. Have you noticed how every car looks the same? You know why? They're all designed by the same robots in the same wind tunnels. Every phone looks the same. Every mobile operating system becomes the same. We converge on everything in terms of spec and features, which means that the only way you can be different is on price, and that's a mug's game. So all true innovation, my friends, is about being counter-cultural, being radically different, about being eccentric, off-center, about seeing risks in an unusual way, pushing against the tide of the general industry view, about inventing entirely new ways to create customer magic. And the good news is that a lot of the greatest magic in the world costs nothing to deliver. We'll see how that is. You know, strategies are often overtaken by events. I work mainly with the largest multinationals in the world, crisscrossing from one part of our world to the other. And I've noticed this, that just about every 5-year strategy is getting swept away by events right now. Here is an example. One 5-second event, actually, I exaggerate. It took 20 seconds. A single 20-second event in Japan caused another single 20-second event in the same country, a crack in a nuclear reactor. As a result of that, 40 years of energy policy changed in 2 countries, in Japan and in Germany. As a result of that, there's been a knock-on effect as these 2 countries decided to phase out nuclear across energy markets throughout the world. Our lesson, therefore, is that the days of having only one strategy are over. We need to have plan B, plan C, plan D, so we can be agile, thinking ahead with a creative, dynamic, and innovative approach, seizing market opportunities in this crazy world where things change faster than sometimes we can even think. Now, what about the global economy? I'll just make a couple of comments from the historical point of view. If you look back to 1980 through to this year, 2015, you see the truth, which is different from the impression on CNN, which is that the global economy throughout that period, from 1980 to today, basically grew continuously, with the exception of about a 9-month period when it shrank a tiny bit. And the reason, of course, was because of the astonishing growth in most parts of the world where most people live that we call, quite wrongly, emerging markets. I'm going to use this term, but it's incorrect. Emerging markets, it's just a restoring of a global balance. 500 years ago, 1/3 of humanity lived in 2 parts of the world, India and China. 1/3 of the wealth was in India and China, because we were in a globalized world, as in a strange way it was, everything was relatively equal. And then came the Industrial Revolution, which distorted things for the last 300 years. What we're seeing now is not emerging markets, but more a rebalancing of human history, which will be another 300-year process, at the end of which you will find where 1/3 of humanity is, India and China, 1/3 of the wealth is India and China. It's part of our rebalancing fundamentally of our future. Now, just look at Vietnam. Can you spot the global crisis? This is a graph of their GDP from 1986 through to 2012. No. Yes, there's been a crisis inside the country of various kinds with high inflation and so on, but this country has a growth curve which is similar to the ones I could show you for Uganda, Kenya, Mozambique, Indonesia, Singapore, and so on. And you put all these things together and you see an extraordinary picture, the truth of the next 100 years. In the meantime, the Chinese government is sitting on $3.4 trillion of cash, a large chunk of it US government bonds, and they're going to spend it in other ways in the future. They will switch it out of US government bonds because there are so many more exciting things to do when the single word that drives the future is brought into play. What is the single word that stops them from diversifying right now? I'll come back to that. This money is waiting. By 2020, some analysts believe that sovereign wealth funds around the world, a huge chunk of it in emerging markets like UAE, China, sovereign wealth funds will have a pot of around $50 trillion to spend when the time is right, when that single word is triggered, that will drive the future. There is another $2.4 trillion sitting in the bank accounts of the largest corporations in America and some of the other large corporations elsewhere. By the way, what's the point of this cash? You know, the point of cash when you raise it from the market is to invest it in products, services, research, development, grow your business, right? When a company raises money from the market and 5 years later starts giving it back in cash back, it shows a bankruptcy of strategic thinking, right? It means basically the company is saying, we've run out of things we can think of to do with the money, and we thought the most sensible thing is to give it back to you. Well, that's okay for a while, but you can't on doing it. That is not a strategy for growth. That is basically an admission that you've run out of strategic future. So you're going to see this money spent. We're going to see it invested in new product, in new services, in new marketing, in new growth, in new markets, in new territories, and so on. So what is the single word that's going to drive the future? You know, I was supposed to be doing a technical rehearsal one day in the ballroom of a very large hotel, and there were hardly any lifts, or they weren't working. I was stuck on the 27th floor. I just didn't know what to do. I was looking at my watch. I was tempted for a moment to do something totally crazy. I was actually tempted to touch the lift button more than once. Now, I know that you would never even think of such a crazy thing. Okay, put your hands up if you have thought about it. You didn't actually do it, but you did think about it. Put your hands up if you actually touched the lift button. Okay. All right, confession time. Put your hands up if you actually talked to the lift, like me. Come on. You know, I discovered that airline pilots talk to their planes. I had 1,000 airline pilots in a room just like this, and I asked them the same question. I said, by the way, put up your hands if you talk to your car. They all talk to their cars. In the snow, when they won't start. I said, put your hands up if you talk to your plane. Come on, baby, it's time to go. They all do. They all talk to their planes. Now, what was the lesson of this is simple, that we are rational, logical, analytical people, but when we are under pressure, we start to behave less rationally and quite emotionally, and it takes only about 5 or 10 seconds of pressure to trigger that in us. So we begin to understand that the most powerful word that is powering the future is emotion. And in fact, when we're thinking about disruptive technologies, the difference between one that disrupts and one that's just noise is emotion. It's whether it connects. It's whether it fires the passions of the people that we work with. It's whether, that is what depends on whether China or Japan cancel or boost nuclear. We had two big reactions to that catastrophe in Japan. Japan cancelled nuclear, Japan boosted it. Different emotional reactions to the same event. Same in Europe. Germany cancelled it, UK boosted it. Same history, different future. So if we want to understand the future of the energy industry, we need to look beyond the figures and think about mood, psychology. And this is based to one of the most significant words that will drive the future of every company here, which is trust. I mean, if you think a bank, if you have no trust, you have no bank. In fact, you could argue that if for the financial services companies here today, that trust is the greatest asset that you have. It's the only product that you actually sell. When you have trust, you have something. If you have trust, you have an insurance company. An insurance company is an absolute trust in the future. You're trusting them to pay out when you're in trouble. The bank is a trust in every part of the wealth management process. And food triggers emotion too. I've just been to McDonald's where I had a breakfast this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning because we needed to set up here. I trust them. That's why. First, no-brainer. I needed something to eat 6 o'clock in the morning. I trust McDonald's. I went straight there. I got the breakfast. I didn't need to inspect it or smell it. I just ate it. Trust is fundamental to the food industry. If you don't trust the food company, that company is toast. It's not just food, it's toys, trusting that the toys aren't coated with some kind of lead oxide paint. Or it's just about every part of every business has trust at the very root of it. And you know what? Trust is difficult to win and easy to lose. Here is another thing that's changing in our world at extraordinary speed, which is the perception of time. And this affects every one of our customer relationships, whether your customer is an internal customer, whether it's business to business, or whether you're in retail. By the way, who is involved in mystery shopping here? Who here has done some mystery shopping in the last year? By that I mean you've pretended to be a customer, you've gone into one of your own stores, or you've pretended to be someone, you've tried to buy one of your own insurance products online. Put your hands up if you've done that recently. I believe if you want a quick way to grow your business, pretend to be a customer. You will learn more about the future of your business in 5 minutes than in 100 years. I believe that one of the fastest ways to grow a business is to ask all the senior team to have it written into their contracts, their diaries and their schedules that at least for 2 hours a month they'd be a customer. Just about every company I ever consult with, the very first thing I do is try to be a customer. Or I'll apply to get a job and see whether I can even complete the online HR form. Or I try to buy an insurance product and I see whether I can even find the model of my car. You know what? I have seen so many train crashes emerge as I've tried to be a customer. You wouldn't believe the opportunities, the sorting things out quickly that you wouldn't see otherwise. It's tremendous. And the most important thing I want to know is not what the customer is doing. I want to know how the customer is feeling. Yeah, correct. So how did I feel when I tried to buy a car insurance and for the 14th time I got a timeout error on the web page? It took me 25 minutes. Additionally, and it turned out to be a bug that only affected, as the company said, well, we've calculated it only affects 2.5% of all of our customers. See, folks, we can sort this out. You know, time is becoming the most important ingredient, and we all knew that, but let's just think how important it's got. I want you to imagine last night that you were watching, some music program, and for some strange reason, you wanted to check the birth date of Britney Spears. Okay, so you go online, and you click Britney Spears' name into Google, you press the button, and to go to her webpage. Here's the question. How many seconds do you think you'll wait before you press the back button, because life's too short to wait for a Britney Spears birthday? Put your hands up if you press the back button in less than 5 seconds, typically. Okay, have a look around, folks. This 5-second test tells you more about the future of business in Wisconsin than anything else I could ever tell you for the next 20 years. 5 seconds. What you've shown me is this. You've shown me your future. The future of your business is business-to-business relationship as well as retail. Why is that? Because what you've shown me is this. In 1 second, okay, fair dues. 2 seconds, you've blamed the website. 3 seconds, you wonder if the internet went down. After 4 seconds, you're becoming frankly irritated. And after 5 seconds, you've told me, in the show of hands, that you've lost the will to live and have terminated the entire relationship. Okay? Now, I'm not telling you, you've just shown me. 95% of you, 5-second test. Oh, what about your children? How long do you think they're waiting? 2.5 to 3, yeah, I think that's about right. Depends on the age. My granddaughter, I have a granddaughter who's 3 months old. She waits 1.25 seconds because she knows that human beings live in iPads, and if you touch them, they smile. And if they don't smile within 2.1 seconds, she's gone. Okay, so 5 seconds. What about you in 10 years, 5 years' time? By 2020, how long do you think you'll be waiting before you press the back button? Probably half the time, right? Now, I'm just saying that 5 seconds has become like a million years. And so here's the first takeaway of something that costs nothing to do. Every second that you can save in every aspect of every customer relationship, quite literally, will earn you dollars. I promise you. It will increase your conversion rate, and I'm not just talking about the website. How long it takes to answer the phone, how long to switch you to the right person, how long to get the contract back, how long to do this, how long to do that. Companies that can simplify a one-week process and deliver it in a day. Oh, my word. 5 seconds is a million years. A day is eternity. A week is the last century. Here's another example. In our country, in the UK, where we live in London, the utility companies charge us every month based on an estimate of how much electricity we use. And guess what? They always overcharge, right? So we've got an average balance of around $1,000, and we thought we should try and reduce that. So my wife's phoning them up. She gets through. First of all, she has a 1-minute compliance notice. You know, your call's very important. We record all this kind of stuff. Then it says, press 1 for accounts, press 2 for customers. There are about 18 options. And by the time she's gone through the 8, she has to repeat the whole lot to work out which one to press. Put your hands up if you find that extremely annoying when someone has already stolen money from you. Okay. Put up your hands if you think it is a social crime to put in such a system. And the people who do so should be put in prison. Now, the trouble is, see, you're all laughing because I'm sure none of you have such systems. But I assure you, I've done this presentation in front of a whole load of telcos or IT companies, and then, of course, the next question is, and they fall into the trap, put your hands up if you have such a system for your own customers. And, of course, all the hands go up again. So what happened? What happened, my friends, is that we started to focus on, we went to work, took off our ordinary human being glasses, forgot what it's like to create magic for human beings, and decided to make magic for the bottom line. So in concentrating on something that looked like a good business idea, we actually landed up making customers very annoyed, because you've just shown me that anybody who asks you to push a button, you want to put in prison, right? You are irritated the very moment you know you've got through to such a system, correct? So we've learned that actually creating customer magic need not cost a lot. Actually, you're saying, yes, it can cost a lot, Patrick. You get rid of those things and you start putting in real human beings, it costs a fortune. It doesn't, you know. Most of our customers have got mobile phones now, and if we have the mobile phone number and after we have permission to use it, which is another legal question, I know, but if we have permission to use it, then we recognize them the moment they come in. We can switch them using little data, which we'll look at in a moment. We can anticipate probably 95 times out of 100 exactly which is the best person in the company to take that call. And if we don't get it right, we'll apologize and push them out to the right person. It doesn't cost a lot to do it right, but my goodness me, it creates a difference with the customer. Fast, urban. Urban is about 1 billion children alive today. Demographics will drive every business. You show me your business, show me the market you're in, and let's look at the demographic data, and I will predict your future. You say, yes, it depends on lots of things. Yes, it depends on innovation, execution, price, efficiency, and so on. But primarily, the size of your market is driven by demographics. 1 billion children alive today. There will never, ever be in human history 1 billion children on the face of the earth at the same time, because fertility rates are falling, as income rises. It's happening in every single country of the world. Now, here is a statistic which is so wild that it is impossible, really, humanly, to comprehend it fully. I'm showing it to you. You know it's true intellectually. But to really grasp what it means, and forgive me for exaggerating a little bit, but you might say that there is no point whatsoever anymore in developing new businesses to sell to anyone except those who live in emerging markets, because no one lives there anymore. In 15 years' time, there will only be 15% of the whole of humanity living anywhere else other than in places what we consider to be emerging markets today. So when I talk to my multinational clients who say they're multinational, and I look at that chart, they say, yeah, we sell 60% in the US and 45% in the, say 15% in Europe. We sell a lot in Australia, some in New Zealand. And I say, you call yourselves a global company. So you're only selling to 15%. 15%. And actually, they're all mature markets with no growth. You're just fighting for market share. So what kind of future is there for this particular company? If it's claiming to be a global company, it ain't. It's actually completely ignoring not just 85% of humanity, but probably 98% of all the growth opportunities for that business. 1 billion people will migrate over the next 30 years. Most of them from rural areas in their own country to towns and cities in their own country, following a 300-year process we have seen in every territory, including right across the United States of America. 1 billion people. And a significant number of them will migrate from poor cities to wealthy cities in other nations. And why is that? One of the reasons is because half of all the wealth of the world is now owned by just 1% of humanity. And within the next 15 years, I estimate it'll be around 65% of the entire global wealth will be owned by 1% of the people on the earth. We have never before in human history lived with these level of contrasts, and they are getting larger. And as they do, the aspirations become stronger for people to move from one zone to another. And of course, we see this in legal and illegal migration of various kinds. But just have a look at how these things play out. Let's imagine you're a technology company. You need people with science, technology, engineering, and maths degrees. Let's see where they are. If you look at 2009 to 2015, the whole of the developed world produced just that tiny dark green piece. All the rest of those graduates came from so-called emerging markets. But actually, it's more extreme than that. If you look at 2010 to 2015, look at the growth of China's contribution to these graduates. Almost all of them in the world, it almost looks like, doesn't it? Coming from just one territory. And look at the step up from 2010 to 2015. China has not even started yet. They are just playing around with growing universities for their aspiring populations that are wanting to become graduates of these subjects. China and India together producing almost the entire output of graduates in maths, engineering, biotech, nanotech, infotech, and every other kind of tech you can imagine. 1 billion people will be over the age of 60 in 10 years' time. Many of them living in places like Europe. In fact, Europe is dying. In Germany, today you need 8 couples to produce a single great-grandchild. Think about it. My wife and I were in Italy the other day. 1 million people will be over the age of 90 in Italy in 12 years' time. There will be enough 90 to 100-year-old voters in Italy to change the result of every election for the following 30 years. Does it matter? It might. So you can see Germany is discovering a lesson that the UK discovered 10 years ago, which is that if you've forgotten how to make babies, you either have to make more or you have to import them. And I'll tell you, that's in Europe right now a really big issue because we have pressure with the fact that we've forgotten how to make babies or we don't seem to want to. And of course, with that, we also get tragedy and disaster. But Germany is caught in the horns of a dilemma. It's just accepted 800,000 refugees. Most of these people are young, aspiring guys, just like the people who came across to the United States of America to make their fortune and contributed to the greatness of this enormously prosperous and wealthy and successful nation. And Germany needs a whole generation of people like that right now. So there are complexities going on, and when we look at the future of healthcare, and I think of healthcare companies here, but all of us are affected by this. 65% of all health spend is on those over the age of 65. And you know, most people over the age of 65 have more than one thing wrong with them. In fact, 66% of Medicare costs are in people who have more than 5 things wrong with them. 1 in 3 newborn babies born in New York today will develop adult-style diabetes as a child because they're overweight. Now, despite those kinds of things, we're going to see dramatic improvements in life expectancy as a result of medical innovation. One of these is microsurgery. Here are hundreds of surgeons being trained to use microscopic instruments, tiny wires, minute telescopes, extraordinary technology, sometimes controlled by robots, things going on right deep inside the body without a single cut. And when you combine that with things like 3D modeling, next generation technologies which allow us this year to put in 125,000 tiny straws into the blocked coronary arteries of people who are about to die of a heart attack. We do that by making a tiny little nick in the artery in their leg, and we thread a piece of wire under 3D imaging. It's genius stuff, almost very, very low mortality rates, very high success rates. It costs almost nothing compared to cutting someone open to give them open heart surgery. 125,000 a year. I'm telling you the past. You tell me the next 30 years. This technology has extraordinary power. You connect it with next generation augmented reality. This is augmented reality that you'll see coming into marketing in the supermarkets. You'll see it in mapping, in engineering, on building sites, and here it is right in front of a surgeon. So this is a big image, 3D, he's got 3D vision he sees us in. He's operating, maybe with a robot assistant, but the point is that over what he's seeing, or she is seeing, he's seeing elements that have been provided by the computer, which show maybe where cancerous cells are. They highlight where the blockage in the blood vessel is. So he can crawl inside the artery virtually using 3D technology in real time, right inside the patient at the same moment as he's cutting. Wow, this is extraordinary stuff. This is the future. It's when infotech combines with nanotech, combines with robotics, combines with diagnostics, combines with miniaturized telescopic genius and microengineering. And when you push these things together in healthcare, it means that health days will reduce dramatically. And then you combine that with virtual medicine, and you realize that home care is going to grow very fast right across the United States of America, especially for older people who really shouldn't be in hospital in the first place. Now, the good news is, for the average American, for the average European who is reasonably well off, your life expectancy has improved in the last year by about 3 months, and has gone on doing it for the last decade or two. And that's just without any spectacular improvements. So look at this. We now have the capacity to engineer human tissue, to take your adult cells, forget about embryo cells, they are hugely controversial, whatever your views are, hugely controversial, illegal to use in many countries. We don't need them. We can do whatever we want using your own tissue, which cuts out a whole load of complexity because it matches you. You're never going to reject it. We can grow repair systems for heart, brain, and spinal cord using today's technology. We're just at the start. The results are interesting, promising, partial, not full, but we are getting there. Here is a retina. Imagine your mother has got macular degeneration and has lost 95% of her sight. Could we grow her a new retina? Yes, we can. Am I talking future? My friends, I'm talking history. This piece of retina was grown from skin cells from a human being. Skin cells, my friends, not retinal cells. Skin cells converted into a slightly more primitive form, put into a chemical bath to make them tricked into thinking they're part of the eye. We grow sheets on a plate of retinal cells. This is a sheet. We then cut the piece out, roll it up into a tiny straw-like thing, make a tiny nick on the side of your eye, insert it through the eye, pop it behind the lens, stitch it to the... I'm a physician, by the way, you can probably tell in my first training. Okay, so it excites me. But I hope it excites you too. This is important stuff. We can stitch it to the area of the damaged retina, and we're seeing partial regain of sight. There are some people, as a result of retinal transplants, that have had good restoration of sight for up to 7 or 8 years. Isn't that amazing? It may be more, but they had it 7 to 8 years ago. We just don't know how long these things will last. We are on the edge of extraordinary technology and science. And I promise you this, the lessons you learn in medicine, they start applying to digital. Digital stuff starts playing out in diagnostics for medicine and in the oil industry. Every trend connects to every other trend. It's extraordinary. Here's a bubble jet printer. Oh, this is computer technology, but now we're growing spare parts for people using the same tech. Oh, why is that? Because if you load up the bubble jet cartridges with human cells and jelly, we can spray an organ. Zoom, 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 zoom. I've got a 3D printer at home. It prints toys, which is boring. I want to print parts for people. Actually, we used to read your genome for $750 million per person. It took 15 years to do the first one. We will soon be able to do it for around $2,000. In my country, the government has decided that every newborn baby will have its entire genes read by 2020. We will be connecting all these medical records and comparing them with what happens to them. We can start doing it with your children, with your brothers and sisters. We could do it with 700 people here and connect 700 medical records in this room right now today and analyze using big data, compare it with your genes, and we start to open up an enormous new understanding of predictions for disease. And then we have animals that don't seem to get old. I'll carry on. Okay, that's another story. It's all on my website. You can find out about it. Some animals don't seem to get old. We don't find any signs of aging in some animals. Fast urban tribalism. Tribalism, I'll go through these other phases more quickly. That's about social media. Every company is a tribe. Every marketing group is a tribe. Every brand creates a tribe. That's why Facebook is so important. Tribal chat. If we want to communicate with people, we must understand the language and the mechanism and the channel of the tribe. If you want to communicate with millennials, forget voicemail, they never answer the phone. They regard email as a really last century invention that they do for work if they have to, but the thing that they use more than anything is chat, whether it's Snapchat or Facebook chat or whether it's SMS. SMS, I know, even for us here, is the one way that a relative will get hold of you if one of your children was sick right now. Isn't that right? SMS. Life's too short for email. Who uses email these days to actually communicate something important? So SMS, these kinds of things are really important. We need to think through, again, how we communicate with our customers. SMS connects with the most important word of the future, which is emotion. And SMS has an emotional connection for people that email does not, so we need to understand that. So people love being in cities. That's why, because people love to breathe the same air. It connects them emotionally to each other. That's why video conferencing is so unpopular. Big data, little data. Big data only has value if it helps you to identify a tribe. Because at the end of the day, all the rest is just background noise. But when you've identified a tribe, a pattern, a group, a system, a process, and by the way, most of the value is in little data, not big. What is little data? Little data is about talking to an individual customer along the journey of life about something that's right in front of them right now that you want to engage them with. So I go to Tesco, which is our equivalent of Walmart. As I come out, it says, "Congratulations, Patrick. You spent 96 cents. You saved 96 cents on this deal compared to all the following competitors." Little data delivered in real time to me, a unique message right now that makes me feel very good. It's all about the feel, all about the engagement. Here's little data. Here's a piece of magic for just about any business, a secret here, but especially if you run a restaurant or a hotel or a bank, or if you have any contact with any customer. The most important organ for your sales team is the eye, and the most important thing with the eye is to read what's going on. The most important thing in any restaurant is to catch the restaurant waiter's eye. Put up your hands if you found that irritating when they won't look at you. Okay? The most important thing, does it cost much to tell a waiter to look around as they gather the plates? No. A good waiter can collect 10 or 15 visual messages at the same time in 10 or 15 seconds walking around the room. What does it cost to train them? Zero. Here's another example. British Airways sent me a letter the other day. I always read their things because they're very clever and they're very personal. They said, "Patrick, dear Patrick, where'd you go?" So we keep seeing you, we keep taking you to all kinds of exotic and wonderful places, but we never see you come home. I thought that was cool. Big data, forget it. Little data, that was where the value was. Little data told them that I was disappearing off the radar screen. Let's send him a letter and remind him of that. They said, "Here is a special incentive. The next 55 return tickets you do in the next 6 weeks, we'll give you double air miles. That was very cool. Here's another one, big data. If you travel from here, if you travel from Chicago to Honolulu, or from Honolulu to Chicago, you need different things. If you're going out one way, what do you need? Tell you, if you're going out, the adrenaline's running. You've got business meetings when you get off the plane, right? What do you want? You want power and you want email, right? And you don't want the meal. Do you need champagne? No. Do you need a bed? You must be joking. But coming back, you've been there for 72 hours. You've slept for only 1.5 hours while you're there, and you're straight on the plane back from Honolulu to Chicago. What do you need? Do you need food? No, you had that because you're sensible. You need sleep. So what you actually want to do is 3 bottles of water, 0 messages, a dark cabin, and no breakfast. Give me breakfast, I'll kill you. Okay? I need to sleep. Therefore, for the airline that flies you, there's one piece of little data which they need more than all the rest of the data put together. And you already telling me what it is. They need an O or an I against my name on the passenger manifest that says outgoing or incoming. And the other thing they need by it is number of hours or days in country between the 2 flights. Yeah? And straight away, you know everything I'm thinking and feeling. You know how to adjust the entire composition of that offering. Now, how long would it take for a programmer to write a line of code like that? Less than 3 minutes. How long do you think it would take to train all the business class crews to read that and understand what it means? 0 time. You just roll it into the part of the training. Would they ever forget it once you showed them? No, they'd never forget it. So you can see, my friends, once again, the mystery and the magic of customer relationships comes from the application of technology in a subtle way, combined with common sense, and that genius releases emotion. And it costs very little. That's the wonderful news. Here's, okay, fast, urban, tribal, universal. Universal's about globalization. You know all about that. The largest group here are manufacturers. It's all about increasing scale, about robotics, about huge platforms, about the gigantic investment for self-driving cars and so on. The world is too small at the moment for more than 2 major airline manufacturers, more than 3 mobile phone operating systems, more than 10 large pharma. We're talking about big scale, big consolidation, and at the same time, which is really great news for you, many of you here, huge proliferation of niche manufacturers who can operate quickly, turn something around fast, do a bit of genius, add an innovation to an existing large product or a large manufacturer. And there's another really, really good piece of news for you in Wisconsin, right here in Madison today, which is this. Looking to manufacture in China is now the very last century. Why is that? Well, many of you are already seeing this. With 11% labor cost increases per year in China, including all the government regulations and red tape and other things, and with much lower inflation costs here or in Mexico or in Slovenia or in Poland, it's already becoming cheaper in Europe for many goods and services to start producing or delivering in Slovenia or Poland than it is in China. And the same is true for Mexico. I've just come back from there. It's boom time. And the really good news about Mexico is that Mexico cars are stuffed bursting full of American spare parts. So we've got American product going back across the border and back out again. It's a big trend. It's been going on for a long time. Even if your company has a 30% cost advantage in China today, you can work the maths. By what year will it be no longer efficient? 2018, 2019, 2020. The trend is clear. The timing may not. What about the future of retail? Massive consolidation right across the world. In many parts of the EU, for example, 70% of retail spend is captured by just 8 companies. And part of this challenge, of course, is for the big retailers, is to work out what on earth physical retail is for in a world where everything's online. So it's all going to be about the experience, about entertainment, about touching, about feeling. We can't have supermarkets where they wrap most of the product for fruit and veg in plastic, because virtually the only reason for going to the supermarket is to smell, touch, and feel. There has to be theatre about it. If it's in plastic, I might as well buy it online. I'm exaggerating slightly, but we are dealing with a fundamental rethink about the purpose of physicality. So it's about entertainment, it's about physical markets. That's why the flower markets and the vegetable markets around by the Capitol building here are so vital to the future of retail. And it's about being available to every customer on their journey. And yes, of course, we can put all kinds of bleeping things and messages that go into people's trolleys as they go around the supermarket. but actually much better to know where they are physically. You can think about all kinds of, again, complex things, and Google Glass, I have to say, was a great embarrassment. Wearing it, I nearly got killed. Never mind. But here's an example of being on the journey. Here's something that costs nothing. If you've flown across the world, as I often have, and you arrive and face that, what's the one thing you need right now? A beer? Any other? I suggest a restroom. Been in the car 2.5 hours from Chicago to Wisconsin, you need a restroom. Trouble is, I've got 4 bags, my computer, what do? I can't take them all with me. A really smart hotel, they see me coming. The concierge sees me, hello, welcome. Wow, you had a long journey, I can see. I'll take care of your bags. What can I do? There's coffee over there. Don't wait here. It's a waste of time, that queue. Just wait 5 minutes. Coffee over here. Restrooms over there. Wow, what does it take to do that? Not a lot. Almost nothing. And by the way, you get to the hotel room, it's midnight. You've got a business meeting the following day. Your clothes have been crushed in the bag for 6 to 12 hours. What's the one thing I now need? I need someone to sort my shirt out. Am I going to film for someone? No way. I need to sleep, right? It'll take half an hour for the person to come, and then they'll promise, what time do I want them to bring it back? You're nodding your head, you've been there. I don't want them to wake me up, right? I don't know. I want the last possible second, but then I'll be worried, then they're going to be late. So actually, I need an iron in the room. Is it funny how the most luxurious hotels never have an iron? Have you even noticed that? I need an iron in the room, or what am I going to do? Put your hands up if you've also held your clothes up steaming in the shower to try and get creases out at night. I mean, wow! See, I'm saying customer magic is so simple to do, isn't it? I mean, how can they make that mistake? So let's understand what it feels like for you at 1 in the morning to know you're going to have 3 hours sleep because you've got to spend 20 minutes holding a shirt up in the shower. This is the substance. And I will find these kinds of things in every business here. And e-commerce, we talk a lot about it, and you'll hear a lot more about it today. Just one simple fact. Half of all searches on Google are now mobile in Wisconsin. Another important fact. In many countries of the world, including my own, and Vietnam, and Kenya, almost all transactions online, whether business to business or business to consumer, are now mobile. So we need to completely rethink the kind of relationship that we have with our customers. It's mobile, mobile, mobile. And once it's mobile, the most important thing to know is where the customer is. Because they could be inside the store looking at the competing product. They're ordering online to be delivered at home, or ordering online to be delivered at work. They're in a taxi on their way to another meeting. If you know where the customer is, you know how they will be feeling. So location-based marketing is the next big thing. It's the most important single fact to know about your customer, and I couldn't care less whether it's the largest business-to-business deal in the world and it's the CEO. If you know where the CEO is right now, if you know where they've come from and you know where they're going, you have a huge insight into their future. Home delivery, home delivery is so slow. You've told me 5 seconds is like a million years, right? So 24 hours waiting for a product, don't even think about it. Delivering at people for home, what's the point of that? No one's at home. So that's why things like Uber are going to come, and home delivery systems without any retailing. So someone like Uber collects the order from you, goes straight to the local store where the product has already been bought, dispatched. The sales assistant is at the door, hands it to the Uber motorcyclist, who then chases me down the motorway with the product that I need all the way to the airport, where they catch up with my own car, hand me the product through the window, and I say, thank you, goodbye. Is that fanciful? No, this is today's history. I'm telling you today, you tell me the future. That's been rolled out in New York. One of Uber's greatest opportunities, I think, is home delivery. Forget the many cabs. The Internet of Things, this is all connected with, of course, being able to think about a world with 250 million wearable devices by 2023, a 70 billion market by 2025. Yes, it's watches and things like that, but it's also health-related wearables. These are Google lenses, contact lenses, which monitor blood glucose levels on a continuous basis. This is another lens developed by NASA, which beams head-up data into this eyesight of the individual that's wearing it without any glasses at all. This is a chip on which human brain cells are growing, a bio-digital brain. We can install chips into your eye, and they fuse with the optic nerve to help give you sight. We can fuse them to the back of the head and fuse them with processing, memory. We can collect thoughts from your brain. We can insert thoughts in memories into your brain. Put your hands up if you like such a chip inside your head. You see, what we learned is the future is not about innovation. It's about emotion. You can have the smartest tech in the world. Who cares? It's about whether it connects with passion. And of course, one thing that people are passionate about is security and control. 12 billion home security market. This market is part of the Internet of Things. 27% of the Internet of Things will be in people's homes by 2020. And then we think of mobile payment systems. 30% of all Kenya's GDP is traded using mobile devices. Africa is far ahead of Europe or the United States in mobile payments. And Africa is driving innovation because of 1.7 billion people who have smartphones but no bank accounts, half of which will find their way into insurance and financial services over the next half decade. Now, when we think about the future of telco and banking, you put these things together. The bank knows a lot, but the telco knows the rest. The telco knows where you are, what you're thinking about. A telco fusion with, say, an Android or an iPhone, with a credit card provider, with a bank, you will see some extraordinary changes. You will see a world where handsets and all the technology related to that, including bandwidth, video movies and the rest, is given away for free so long as the customer is willing to transact all their financial payments using the mobile platform. Oh, why? Because the cost of providing the technology falls towards zero. The cost of the revenues you can generate is rising so fast, and already most of the bandwidth is video. In Europe, most of the bandwidth is video. In the United States, most of the bandwidth is video, or it soon will be. Why is that? Because watching a single movie in HD is equivalent to backing up 140 million emails. So telcos are becoming primarily providers of video. And when you put telco with biometrics, they have better systems for transacting than any bank. Pop it all in the cloud, pop three innovations in the cloud, the Internet of Things, big data, and the cloud, and you have the largest target for attack that the world has ever seen. An attack that could take out every air conditioning system in a world where every electrical device becomes digital and every digital device can be attacked. And we're seeing therefore massive investment in this area. Fast, urban, tribal, universal, radical, and I'll close very quickly with these final two phases. Radical is about single issue activism, and one of the greatest single issues is sustainability and changes, all kinds of changes in the energy market. We know the shale gas story. One innovation, one country, 5 years, has improved the global supply of gas from 60 years to 200 years. That is the speed of innovation and change in the energy industry, just in parallel with other things. In the United States alone, 57 coal-fired power stations went bankrupt in the last 2 years because of the collapse of coal as a fuel, because of the boom in shale gas. As a result of that, it was the equivalent of installing thousands of millions of watts of solar power or wind power, because gas is so much more energy efficient. And we'll continue to see booms and busts in all kinds of energy markets. Solar power grew in this great nation by 750% since 2011, but 6,000% growth in China. In fact, 70% of all green energy growth globally was in one nation alone in the last year, and that's China. China has only just begun its experiments with green tech. China will dominate the green tech markets. Just look at those red figures. All that is China alone. Wind energy, it's almost perfectly optimized already. Output up 10% per year, but not revolutionary. What is revolutionary is these things, either powering large parts of the world through solar in desert. 40 kilometers by 80 kilometers of Nevada is enough to power the whole of America if you can store power overnight, which we can. And we can ship that power 5,000 kilometers with almost zero power loss using today's technologies. Solar power using these things, solar voltaic cells, has leapt 38% in a single year. And prices are falling rapidly towards zero. Just look at that. The prices are already so low for solar cells because this is just Intel-type technology. Costs falling towards zero, and they will go on falling lower and lower and lower. We will see solar cells that have up to 3 times the efficiency of the ones we have today. The solar cells we have today are already so cheap that you can install them with a bank loan in your house in many parts of the world and make money from the first day on the bank loan. In Germany and in Australia, energy prices actually went negative, as I predicted 5 years ago. They went negative because those countries, parts of Australia, parts of Germany, were producing so much solar, so much wind, that they had to give the power away. In fact, they had to pay people to use the power. So they were phoning companies up and saying, turn on all your power, all your air conditioning, all your cooling systems, all your heating systems at the same time, because this is a national emergency. And the price of that electricity, my friends, was 3 times or 4 times the normal price in reverse. You use it, we pay you. Wow. We are only in the first hour of the first day of this digital revolution. We already have the technology to convert spare power to methane gas and then ship it underground through the pipes or put it back where it came from in the gas field. We have the technology already to power the whole of Germany, for example, as they are planning, using compressed air in salt caverns, which then dry gas turbines when you need the power at night when the sun's not burning. Ship it all through long distances. I've sat in a meeting with the head of the national grid for Russia, the head of the national grid for China, the head of the national grid for Germany, the head of the national grid for Venezuela. The Russians and the Chinese were discussing one line to enable nuclear power from Beijing to power the lighting in Moscow, with almost zero power loss. This is the scale of investment that's happening. And many of these inventions cost nothing. Why? Because they have a payback period that's so short, they even pay the loan. So new street lamps in this city, well, yeah, you've already got them, I think. They say the 5% of the energy of this great city is street lighting, and we can reduce that to only 2 to 3% with a technology that has a payback period of 3 to 4 years. So huge areas of America are going black, from orange to black, from old lights to new lights, very efficient, light down, fascinating. The same things happen to large buildings like this, not older ones being completely re-engineered for free by people like Johnson Controls. You're here today, a really innovative system. You go in there, you take the loan out, you do all the consulting for free, all the technology for free, deliver the whole lot for free on one condition. They just go on paying the normal fuel bills to you for the next 4 years. And you make so much cash on that it pays you back, gives you a nice profit. So with this I finish. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. How do you live with this crazy world? You need ethics and values. And my goodness me, if you need any reminder of that. People say, why do you talk so much about ethics? I say, you'll see. You'll see. You know, as a physician, I spent my time looking after people dying of cancer in my first training. It teaches you a lot about the length of life and how every day is too short. The average length of life of someone I was looking after in that role was about 4 to 6 weeks between the time I'd first see them and the time of the funeral. Put your hands up if you believe this statement's true. Life's too short to sell things you don't believe in. Put up your hands if you think that's true. Life's too short to sell things you don't believe in. You know what? That's the greatest ethical value, that we sell things we believe in. We only sell things that we would actually sell to our own family and friends, right? Yeah? Put up your hands if you think that's a good value. You only sell to things, the things you sell to your own family and friends. We sell things we believe in. We believe in what we're doing. Why is that? Because we've got hold of the excitement of the product or service that we're doing. We believe it creates a better world for the customer. It sorts out their problems. It's a great deal. It's the right price. Saves them money. Helps them to sleep at night. It improves their lives, and thank goodness we're here. Here's something that I don't believe in. Burning biofuel, burning food in vehicles. 40% of all US grain was burnt in vehicles last year. In Europe, I have to burn food every mile I drive. I'm forced to by law. If I don't, I'll go to prison. Okay? I have to burn food. It's required. All US grain would only drive American vehicles, I think 25 to 30% miles we actually drive. So we need to find some other solutions. Ethics is really important. It's going to influence political debate. It's going to influence regulation, but most of all, it influences passion. It influences the emotions of the individuals we look after. And it's beyond compliance. Compliance is the lousy guide. All compliance will do is keep you out of prison. Compliance can't protect your brand. Compliance won't engage you with customers. You can say we've complied with every legal regulation, yes, but the customer can still condemn you at the end. It's a question of understanding what the emotions of the customer are, what they believe passionately in their heart is the right thing to do, what we believe is the right thing to do, and making our stand on doing it great. We build a better world for ourselves, for our customers, for those in our communities where we work. We employ people well, we treat the environment well, and we make tremendous returns for our shareholders because we do fantastic things for our customers. Most of all, we understand that the little things make all the difference to our customers. We believe in their future, we engage with them, we listen to them, we understand what it feels like to be a customer, and we then are able to use genius, disruptive technologies in ways that our customers couldn't ever have imagined to produce a transforming experience. So, in conclusion then, I wish you well. I hope you've seen that the world is sometimes a crazy place, but actually it's an incredibly exciting future, full of dynamic opportunity, where whatever industry you're in, you might find the skills, experience, expertise that suddenly start to play out in another sector altogether, providing extraordinary new business opportunities for those who are agile and can exploit next generation digital. That's the future of almost everything. Thank you very much.